And hello, good people of the internet. It is I, Tommy Kelly. This is Adventures in Woo Woo, and welcome to the highly anticipated, long overdue, and possibly factually incorrect in many places podcast about my approach to the elements and how exactly they all fit into the greater cosmology that I'm trying to lay out in the last couple of episodes of this rejuvenated and rebooted Adventures in Woo Woo podcast. So before we get into that, and if you've no interest in what's going on with Tommy and his life and updates, just jump to the relevant section of the elements. It'll be in the show notes. I assume if future Tommy has got his finger out and actually did it, where you can find the timestamps to do so. But a few updates, particularly around stuff that I said in the intermediate episode that was previous to this. Just a few updates on what's going on and a few things to try and get you to be interested in. Lots of stuff is happening over on the Patreon at the minute, and with that, Adventures in Woo Woo Discord too, which is, I suppose, the communication chain or the communication wing of the Patreon, given that Patreon itself isn't particularly good for community building or community fostering or community interaction. It tries in the most rudimentary way to do some sort of community thing, but it's not good at all. But do we really need another social media? So maybe it's a good thing that Patreon is so bad in that area. Anyway, we've been doing a number of different rituals and kind of magic. Imagine actually doing magic. Magicians sitting around actually doing magic. It's great. And if that's something you'd like to into, some, kind of a group ritual stuff. If there's Four Devil stuff going on, there's the Radiating Aura, there's stuff we've done with Jareth Tempest's Raziel or Raziel. I know I'm told how to pronounce it in the book, but I always have to check just before I use it because I always get it wrong. Yeah, and at the minute we're doing another of the book clubs where we're going to pick a book in which we will read and then discuss, and if there's practical things, we will do the practical things and then come back and discuss them as well. So if that's something you think you might be interested in, maybe have a look at the Patreon. There's a host of other things that happen there as well. There is the monthly divinations that I do with the 40 servants, where depending on what level you join the Patreon at, you get a 1 card, 3 card, 5 card or 9 card reading. Next month we'll also see the Saint Novena that we do every year. Every month, wow, that'll be a lot. The Saint Novena that we do every year, and I'm thinking of doing a kind of a pre-novena due to something that was suggested to me during the year by someone who knows these things. That's a bit kind of vague, but if you keep an eye out in the next couple of days or week, then you will know more about it. In other news, I've had a number of new songs out recently. I've one solo song called Broken Wings, and I've had a number of songs released with the band I'm in, KNDK, that you can check out on my social medias or the YouTube channel and all of that. In the last episode, the intermission, I was talking a bit about things I'd been up to, and one of the ones is that I had applied to David Bett and Jessica Groth's Gnostic Order to see how that would pan out, because I like an awful lot of what David Bett says in the various lectures and talks that he's given online, particularly on YouTube and in different podcasts and all that, and I like this kind of idea of cosmic gnosis. And I read the Ludwig Klage's books that were suggested, and Elaine Pagel's book that was suggested too, and all these things, and I got a lot from them. But ultimately, when I got the welcome pack or the welcome information, the welcome booklet, which was very lovely printed, very well written, highly produced, can't complain about that. It's all a bit too... It's not what I'm looking for. It's like I find it hard to believe in one sense, not believe, but to kind of balance the David Bett of YouTube and podcasts with the David Bett who wrote the materials for the Gnostic school that he has, because it's like there's no Dark Man, there's no Master Leonard or Leonard, there's no Saturn, there's none of these things. There's a lot of Jesus and a lot of kind of Christianity, which I guess I should have really been expecting from the fact that the word Gnostic is in it, but it doesn't correlate with what I was looking for. And so ultimately I says, no, this is not what I'm looking for at all, and there's no point in pursuing it because I'm going to be wasting my time and their time and everyone's time. And it's not that I have anything particular, I suppose, against the whole Jesus thing or whatever, mostly. In fact, I watched The Chosen. Have you heard about The Chosen? Which is the most successful crowd-funded TV show of all time by a long way. And it's the story of Jesus. And I watched a whole lot of it there recently. There's 4 seasons of it, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. If that was the kind of version of Jesus that I had been given when I was growing up, if that was what Christianity I was presented with, I would think I would probably have a much more fondness first than I probably do at the minute, because of, I was an Irish cat, brought up Irish Catholic, with shame, guilt, hatred, God hates you, all of these things, the horribleness of the Catholic Church and its many, many crimes and all that. But The Chosen, very, very good. I mean, it's one of those things that had I watched it at a different time in life, I probably mightn't have gravitated towards it as much, or mightn't have enjoyed it as much, but I was really into it at the time, and the character of Jesus and the actor who plays him, and the way the approach of it, as much human as he is, a god. He's very funny, he's very warm. It's not this kind of Catholic Jesus who's very stern and always looking off into the distance and quite almost aggressive and angry. He's very warm, open, Yeah, it's funny. It's good. If you're in the mood for a Jesus TV show, that's the one I suggest. So yeah, that's just to say that I'm not opposed to the whole Jesus thing of the Gnosticism, and I have been reading an awful lot more Gnosticism recently, which I'm enjoying. It's just that there's just that whole part of it that's not in all Gnosticism, clearly, and it's not in David Bett's Gnosticism, is that, that there's something, that this is a place to escape from, or this is an illusion, or this isn't the place to be, or this is not where the work is, and that the whole point of life is to get away from this, and somehow, to wake up from the simulation, from the matrix, and to find your true inheritance somewhere else. I don't gel with that stuff at all, and I don't think it's true, and it's not my experience, but I do find an awful lot of what's going on in the kind of Gnostic thought, at least to be interesting and worth considering. So, yeah, that's kind of the update for anyone who's stuck around for that. I appreciate it. And now on to the elements. Guess I should do a kind of a quick introduction to what my approach is going to be here about the elements, because it's from a larger cosmology that I've been laying out over the last couple of episodes here, and it's embedded within that. While it's fairly standard approach to the element, it's not the standard approach, if there is a standard approach. I mean, having looked through all of this over the last while, trying to get as much information and different thoughts and views on the elements, the one thing I can tell you for sure is that no one agrees on anything, which is the truth in all things, I suppose, to do with magic and the occult and philosophy and religion. It's certainly, there's many ideas, and people are very vehement about theirs being right in many cases. But this one, I am not in any way trying to present it as this is what it should be right for you, or that it is classical, traditional, or in any way, I don't know, deemed to be correct or perfect or any of those things. It's how I approach it and how I find it useful. And it is embedded in the larger cosmology, as I said. Well, what is the larger cosmology? Well, very quickly, because there is, entire hours of me talking about it and rambling on about it, that this place is a conjunction between spirit, which is inert potentiality, all possibilities with nowhere to go, with nothing to do with it, and then matter being the ground, the field upon which all of these things can play out. And the coming together of spirit and matter, the father and the mother, creates the child, which is consciousness, which is us and other things. And that the whole object of the game, the whole idea, is to inspirit matter, to in some sense redeem matter, not to imply that there was anything wrong with matter in the first place. It's not like a redeeming of something that's bad, but to inspirit, to bring the spirit here, to make this place holy, to perfect this place. And that's the work that is to be done, rather than try to escape it, rather than trying to run away from it, rather than trying to find it in any way illusionary or something. This is it. This is where it all happens. This is the whole point of it is here, not somewhere else. If you want to know more about that, I do go through it in length in some of the previous episodes. So this is going to be in 4 parts, though I do think there's 5 elements. And the element of spirit is essentially just the thing I've talked about, the potentiality, the inert possibility, chaos, the father in all of those things. And then the 4 elements is the way, I suppose, is matter, or the way in which spirit, gets in, and the process by which it gets in, and the process by which all things are kind of worked out. And this idea of the redemption of matter, or the redemption of matter, happens through this elemental circle of life, man. So I'll be leaving out the spirit, even though I do, I would consider it an element, but it's an element above, it's a separate element, whereas the 4, earth, air, fire and water, can be talked about in their own enclosure, let's say. I'm going to do them as the holy smoke, the holy flame, the holy water and the holy ground. And hopefully that's not too pretentious, but it will hopefully make a bit more sense when I talk it out. So let's get into this. The holy smoke. So it all starts facing the east on the sunrise. It's dawn. And this is the place, this is the point, this is the start where spirit tries to enter into the material world. The beginning of the redemption, or the spiritualization, or, making this place holy. And this is the element of air. And in many places, air is considered the vital component or element which, gives life, or, that's where the spirit is, in a sense. It's like you have like the breath of life, or you have rauch, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The pneuma, the wind of spirit, the breath of life, that this kind of chi, in one sense, even though that's more of an energy like a prana, or this thing that enlivens, that gives things spirit, that animates, the animating principle, comes in through the wind, comes in through the element air. And it's like, in the beginning was the word, and the word is, it's a message, it's a communication, it's a breath, it's something spoken into the words that starts it all, and it's like even in many things you have the idea of, the breath in and the breath out of the universe, or of Brahma. While it's also the breath and, the kind of animating principle, it's also air is mostly associated with the intellect, or with mind, or with intelligence, or thinking, or, the nous, I suppose, consciousness, mental activity, communication, wisdom, all of this kind of stuff. It's, in the sense of that it's associated in the tarot card, for instance, with swords. And in a way, we say, when we want to say that someone's quite intelligent, or, they're quite smart, whatever, we say, they're quite sharp. Or we say something here, tack sharp. I don't know if that translates everywhere, but we also do say, they're quite bright. So, all of these things don't completely work out exactly the way the correspondences that, in a neat little box or anything like that. But, this idea of mental activity, like of consciousness in the sense of mental activity, of being aware, but also the ability to work things out, the ability to create, to, it's like, this is the place, I suppose. This, as we look out into the distance as the sun rises for the first time, and we can feel the cool breath of air coming on to us. This is where the idea comes in. This is where spirit is coming in, and this is where the message arrives. This is, the logos, the word. So this is the place where we first become inspired, where inspiration is. We essentially, the spirit comes into us. We've become inspired. And so air is to do with ideas. And I would see this as in the point of the flowers blooming of the idea. If something creative has just occurred, it's like when you've gotten the idea. It's not when you're kind of searching for the idea. It's not when you're kind of looking for a project, or it's when it has arrived, when that song has arrived, when that book idea has arrived, when that insight has arrived, when it has been spoken out loud, when it's been said, it's the beginning of form. So it's not the seed, it's the flower that needs to be tended to, that needs to be looked after, that is if you've read Them, which is my graphic novel, this is it's the flower that is air. It's the idea, it's the beginning. Creativity is all over the elements. There's not one that you would just say is creativity. It just expresses itself in different ways, but this is the kind of where it comes in, where the idea is presented. So it's here that we get the first inkling of the message, or the idea, or the thing that wants to manifest, the thing that wants to evolve, the thing that was once only in the darkness wants to come into the light. This is the beginning of the work of taking the spirit and bringing it into the material world. Of course, like air and wind and breath is only ever really seen by the effects. You only see wind by, the trees blowing, or, the sound it makes as it goes through a gap in a window. I suppose in some ways you can see breath when it's really, really cold, but just go with me in this unseen kind of metaphor. And so that kind of goes with the whole idea of spirit, or even, I suppose, ghosts, or, jinn, or any of these things that they're kind of the unseen, they're visible, they can be heard, they can be sensed, they can be felt, but, they're not in many ways a tangible thing that you can see always, that it's hard for us to see them apart from the effects that they have. And so it's very in the realm of where spirit is just entering, it's entering through the word, through, it's like some sort of transmission or movement of divine knowledge. Like it's almost like, in a sense, like a whisper that comes in. That's how I see air. Of course, there is negative sides to as well in the whole air element, in that, as well as the truth being told, you can have lies, you can have deceit, spin, propaganda, all of that kind of stuff. People can be kind of airy-fairy, have their head in the clouds. You can get lost in ideas. You can get stuck in, falling in love with the idea and never actually doing anything with it. You can become very inactive or have no action around it. And of course, air is not to be, or wind, or whatever way you want to describe it, it's not to be kind of seen as lesser, because it's still quite powerful in a sense. Like it can extinguish fire, it can move water, it can, you often see like the water being blown, or a waterfall, or a drip being blown by the wind or whatever. Certainly storms and tornadoes can destroy the earth and all that. So it can have a destructive element too, as they all can, in that sometimes, everything needs to fall down in order for something new to occur, for new growth or whatever. The way I see it, so, is mostly though as just, the still small voice, idea space, if you want to go with the Alan Moore kind of thing. It's where things just come in, where it's the door from which ideas, creativity, the things that you're meant to do come in from the east, with the rising sun. And from a magic point of view, there's plenty of things you can do with all that. I remember, if you've been following any of the Black communications, one of the things that it said was that if it was something important, you would say it out loud. And something I've always thought about magic, and something I've had in my grimoire, the 40 Servants, and I've always said is, what do you do? You know, how do you talk to the servants, or how do you talk to spirits, whatever? And I said, I just talk to them like they're in the room. I say it out loud. And there's something way more, for me, effective about saying these things out loud than it is about having it just in your head or just having an intention. Not to say that saying it in your head and just having it as an intention isn't something that's effective, but saying it out loud, it's like launching the sigil, if you want to go in that way. It's like it says, there's an action in it that puts it out there more than just having it in your head and more than just having an intention. I had a dream once, years ago, where this woman was telling me that if you want something, you have to point at it. You have to actually point at it. I was going, I didn't know that. So, well, you never told that. And it kind of stuck with me in that, how would you point at something? And I don't think it physically meant you have to point at it, although why not? But I find the speaking it out loud can often be the pointing of you towards something. And also, if you've been any kind of creative person or anything, you know, or you have had some plans or whatever, and you say it to someone before it's ready, before you've really worked on it, it can dissipate the energy. It's almost as if it has manifested. You know, you have this idea and you go, oh, I'm going to do this, this is my idea for a story, and then the energy just goes away because you've said it out loud too early. So there is something in speech magic, you know, rather than spells, which is, you know, writing. So incantations or prayers or that kind of communication, you know, saying things out loud, saying things to the wind, saying things with the wind, saying things to the east. Incense, of course, anything to do with smell, like aromatherapy or essential oils or fumigation or, you know, smudging, although I've been given out to recently for using the word smudging. Any of that kind of stuff would come under air, you know, which is why I call it the section, the holy smoke. And then you have, of course, you know, like bells and whistles for, you know, bells for clearing areas or whistles for clearing areas, rattles. You can also have like wind charms, which you can use for protection. You know, put anything that makes noise in the wind, you know, put like you often see the Hamas, you know, the Hamas hand thing, the protection of the evil eye on wind charms and stuff like that. Or you could draw your own sigils on wind charms, let it blow through and all that. And this one as well is like this idea of knot magic. I know knot magic is not really considered air, but the way I do knot magic, which if you don't know, is literally getting a piece of string or cord and tying knots, sometimes 9, sometimes 3, sometimes multiples of 3, whatever suits. But it's, you know, with the intention with each knot, it's usually for binding something. But what I like to do is start the knot, have it so that the whole of the knot, if you want, is quite open, and then I speak through it. What is my intention? You know, good luck, and then pull the knot. Get the next one, good luck, or whatever it is, you know. And I find that quite effective, and that you can then turn that into a charm, or you can turn that into something that you hang off the ceiling, or something that you put at the door that can be constantly blown, you know, like a prayer flag or something like that. The normal correspondences, I suppose, with air is things like sylph, the sylph, Raphael, of course, swords, as we said, and you know, the season, the spring. Some people also say the fall, but the way my kind of cosmology works out, it definitely feels more spring to me, whatever. I'm not really sure about the whole angel stuff as well, because it's just not something I'm ever really gravitated towards. And then when I do kind of look at stuff, they never seem to line up properly. If you think people's kind of attributes are corresponding to the elements are diverse, then God, the angel correspondences for many things are so different in many different places, even to the directions where the angels be, you know. But the kind of standard ones are I know from the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. And so Raphael would neatly fit in there. So yeah, that would be air. The holy flame. So we move clockwise from the east and we face south. Now the sun has risen to its highest point. It's noon, it's midday. And having taken the message or the idea from the sunset, we now have to work on it. And at this point, this is where, once we've got into the element of fire, where I suppose we're either really for it or against it. You know, we can resist it or protest it, or we can say no thanks. And in many ways, we can get stuck here in that, in kind of the rejection of the new piece of information or the new creativity or the fresh idea or something like that. And this is, I suppose, where an awful lot of conservatism is, you know, or conservationism in the sense of traditionalism, you know, that we try and stick to the old ways, try and stick to how it used to always work. And I find sweeping statement, but let's say it's mostly true, or at least in my experience, that all conservatism is anti-magic, in that it's the opposite kind of direction of magic. Magic is expansive and moving out, new, evolution, whereas conservatives are trying to keep things contained, trying to keep it contracted, trying to keep it as it is, trying to keep things as it's always been. It's tradition with the fundamentalism, it's of tradition with no growth, rather than allowing tradition to expand into what it is. But the fire element, classically, in most places, is, it's about passion and about the fire in the belly. It's about ambitions and your drives and your vitality and courage and your conviction and your power. A lot of ego kind of stuff here going on, and it's like where the real kind of sense of individualism or self is, which can lead to very kind of bad areas, whatever, a certain sects of occultism, show more than others. So you have this, like, coming from the East, you have this, let's say, this idea or this message. You have been given this message, and depending on where you are, you can become passionate about it, and it can become your message, and you can work towards it. You can, try to make it become into the world. You can try, you can draw your picture, you can write your play, you can make your music. You can take that thing, that inspiration, because the East, you've been inspirited, and you're actually doing the thing. This is the crucible. This is the furnace. This is like the blacksmith's shop where it's actually happening. There's all the heat, all the sweat, all the blood, all the things are be changing from one thing to another, like the iron or the steel is because it's been melted down, things are being smashed, things are being hammered, things are becoming malleable, things are being strengthened. This is where the actual work happens. You can be working towards rejecting the message, but have a more traditional kind of, or conservatism kind of a view. And I don't mean that in a grand scheme. That I could mean that in a very personal way, that, I don't want anything new. I want to hold on to what I have. I don't want this new insight, this new inspiration to in any way affect me. I want to hold on to what I have, and you can fight against it, and there's, there can be revolt against it, and that's what the clashing of the swords are. That's what the clashing of the hammers are. That's where the friction, the conflict, the Martian Aries energy, all of that is where this happens. This is where the message either gets destroyed, attempted to be destroyed, or it gets forged into what it's meant to be, where it starts to have its existence in the material universe, where you start to bring it in. It's where you're drawing the comic, where you're writing the song, recording the song, where you're working out the choreography of the dance, whatever it is you're doing. It's also like going to therapy and, doing shadow work, or raising your kids, or, working on the relationship with your parents, or, your siblings, or that annoying person at work. It's your career, your ambitions, all of these things, the thing you're trying to do with your life, all of those things. Of course, when it goes all wrong, when it's too much of the ego and the passions in the wrong kind of sense, this is the destruction, this is war, this is idealism, it's ego, anger, jealousy, envy, corruption, power for power's sake, all of these kind of negative things that we know and experience and can see in the world around us, and all playing out, and it's all there in front of the eyes, because like fire destroys for good and for bad. And of course, it's the only element out of the four that we can't touch without actually harming ourselves. You can't touch a flame without burning yourself. You can touch the air, it's mostly fine. You can touch the water, mostly fine. You can touch the air, it's mostly fine. But there's no there's no form of fire that you can touch directly that won't burn you. You can touch warmth, and you can touch, like, say, a certain light that's not that hot, but like a flame in itself is going to burn you. And in that way, it's the purifier, right? So it's, the burning off of the dross. It's the light of spirit, right? But it's what we do with it, and how we forge is what we want to do with it. What's the tool we're making of this? What is the exact thing that we're trying to do with this? In kind of Carl Jung speak, just as an aside, this is where I would place the spirit of the times. This is the kind of the melting pot. This is the place where things can feel true, even though they're not. Because it's so much passions, action, ego, drives, there's a very high energy, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of pushing to have your own opinion, a lot of opinions, a lot of kind of all of that kind of happening as well. And so this would be, like social media, or, like Reddit or something like that, or Facebook is a kind of a good example, I suppose, in one way, of all of these kind of things coming together, forming a sort of a group think in one sense, and that can kind of happen in this fireplace, whatever. So the zeitgeist, the kind of spirit of the times, in the sense of public opinion or fashion, or, the current trends around current news cycle or whatever. Fire magic, of course, very powerful type of magic. You can have any sort of holy fire in which you can burn things. You can have good old book burning. You can burn your past. You can get rid of old energies. I've done one of them very recently and it was great. Just getting rid of all things that attached to a certain part of your life or certain, people or certain groups or something like that. And, there's a great purity in it into the fire. But there's something about fire as well. It's also like there's a conduit there as well that I feel like it's as if you can send a message to the other side through fire in many ways. Like burning a sigil for me seems to, it releases it into the spirit or something. And any kind of burning kind of things, if it becomes, transmutes the energy of what it is into something else. In the same way that, literally when you burn wood, all the carbon dioxide that the tree has been taking out for the last, 200 years gets back released again. It's like this kind of chemical process that happens, that you're changing one thing into another thing so that it can go off and do, a different job or have access to something that it wouldn't have. A tree doesn't have access to certain parts of the world in the way carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide has. Carbon monoxide. Maybe it is carbon, whatever, one of those carbons. So I find it is one way to get the message in, Careful, of course, with the fire magic. You can do the course to casino meditation, where you're looking at a flame, and if you look at it for long enough, like days, weird stuff really does start to happen. You start to see things. And then there's the idea of keeping a light on your altar at all times, which I try my best to do, but it's not always practical or not always safe. Just to always have that spark of spirit, of the light that you're trying to bring into the world, and as a symbol of that, and to kind of, even in a protection way, to keep away the darkness, to keep away the darkness. Yeah. Classically, salamanders are the thing associated with fire. Archangel Michael in tarot wands, or torches, wands as torches. People have a lot of different kind of ideas about the correspondence with tarot, and you're going to have to come to your own conclusions, but wand seems right to me for fire. Direction is south, and the season would be summer. And I suppose the chakra with this would be like the solar plexus, or anything to do with kind of the sun. So yeah, that is the holy flame or fire. The holy water. So we turn now from the south and we moved clockwise yet again to the sunset that is appearing over the water to our west. We're standing in front of a great stretch of water. So the iron that has been shaped, or the tool that has been shaped in the iron in the crucible of the south, of the inspiration that we were given in the east, is now put in the water to cool and to become stronger and to become intact and to become what it is. And water for me is all about understanding. It's emotions, it's love, it's intuition, it's wisdom. It's the kind of place where, the resistance to a large extent has disappeared. This whole thing, you're going with the flow. When in its most positive sense, there's allowing, you're adapting. There's the kind of the real battle of you having with yourself, or having with the idea, the message is kind of now, it's gone. The book's kind of written. It's become whatever it is. The dance has become whatever it is. The songs become whatever it is. The child has become whatever it is. Your job is whatever it is. It's the project has, for good or for bad, become whatever it is. It's succumbed to its fate in whatever kind of sense that it's like, and now you're into it. Well, I have to accept it. I have to look at it. What is it? What is the thing that now it is? What is this book? What is this song? What is this insight? What is this? And you just kind of allow it to be, when you reflect on it, as you would, and there's a cleansing around it, but the reflecting is, what is this? And you have to accept it or not accept it, but it is the place of acceptance. And this kind of idea of having come from the crucible and created whatever it is, and you've put it into the water, and it's, the steam's rising as it cools down and the water's cooling it off. It's like that. It's not the burning passion of the insight or the burning excitement of, I've just realized something, whatever. It's like, okay, now that's over. What is this? It's the days after the awakening, and it's allowing it to start to just to be whatever it is. It's like, in the sense of your work in a large extent is the place of the work was in fire, and now the project, the idea is manifested, it's landed, the baby's born. So what is it? This can be a place, of course, of peace and joy, but also, of course, because it is emotions, and because it is, a place of acceptance, that can also mean it's a place of resistance too. You can resist. This is not what I wanted. This is not the baby I wanted. This is not the song I wanted. This is not how I wanted it to turn out. it's already happened, but it's not, so can still be another place of resistance, right? And this can lead, of course, to depression or to being overly emotional about something, like feel, in the sense of when it gets too much, you can feel like you're drowning, right? That kind of sense, that's how sometimes we describe the overwhelming of it. You're just kind of drowning in the water of whatever the situation is that has come to light. An example of that might be where you've realised that, a love relationship has fallen apart and it's all too much to handle, like, all the different things that are coming out, all the different insights around it. Maybe it turned out your husband had been sleeping with your uncle for the last 20 years and it's all too much, it's overwhelmed, and you have this feeling of drowning, or you're stuck, you're overwhelmed, all of these things. This whole idea of going with the flow, going with being as adaptable as water is. I think this is the stage to do that, because I think when people go with the flow and all that thing, if you do that within the fire realm, I think that's not the place to do it. You're going with the flow, because that is the spirit of the times. You can get carried away with other people's opinions, other people's passions, other people's ego, and people can walk all over you and stuff. It's not the place to go with the flow, because the flow is going to be led by someone else, and the truth hasn't evolved there yet. The truth hasn't come out there. It's just in the place of the crucible. The thing is happening, it's about to come out. Whereas the place to let go is when that's done, when the pottery has come out of the oven. Now you have to let go, and it's at that point you go with the flow, because the thing is what it is, and there's no amount of resistance or non-adaptability or conservatism or wishful thinking or any of those things that can get it to not be. That all happens in fire, which is not the place for letting go of the flow. And water holds and it imbues and imprints and it purifies, and this whole healing part of the whole water thing. But that has to come with the acceptance, with the lack of resistance, with the going with the flow, with being malleable, with being able to understand and just accept what the way things are, or the way things are. And this is, of course, again, go back to the idea of the spirits of the time. This is the spirit of the depths then, right? This is the truth of it all. And the spirit of the depths, you would associate depths, of course, with water. Anyway, this is where the truth of the matter reveals itself. And it's a harder thing to get to, because if you put an awful lot of work into something, a lot of passions, a lot of ego, a lot of self-centeredness, a lot of yourself into something, and it becomes almost like a representation of yourself, or so it seems to you. And then it comes out and you go, oh no, it's not anything to do with me at all, and that can be hard to accept. Like, you can see that in a lot of kind of ways with the creativity and stuff like that, where people almost become their art, that it's as if they're the brilliant person rather than the art is the brilliant person. Or, that quote I've said before in the podcast, that Bono says two types of people. Bono from U2, I sometimes quote him. There's two types of people he's come across, or two types of musicians anyway. He says that one is, have you heard my new song, Isn't It Great? Or have you heard my new song, Aren't I Great? And the second type of person is going to have a harder time looking at the sunset as it dips below the water to the west. So this is the place where we understand the message. This is the place where we find out what the idea actually is. This is where we know what the inside actually means. From the east, where it was given to us, from the south, where we've forged and battered and beat it and trying to find out exactly what it is to manifest it in this place, and now we put it down in the water to fully form and strengthen and to be what it is. And we have to accept or not accept the actual nature of it, the spirit of the depths, the actual truth of the whole situation. Water magic would be, you could do an awful lot of moon stuff and moon phases and stuff, because the moon is so associated with water and stuff like that. So anything around new moons, waning moons, waxing moons, new moons, any of those things would be, all come under the water element. That's the thing that used to be said an awful lot in books, particularly, I suppose, more witchcrafty books, is that the idea of dropping stuff into water to either release, or, jars and stuff into water to get them to manifest and stuff like that. While I think that's probably effective, I think you can often find that you're just littering. And that's probably not a good thing. I don't know, if you're going to do something like that, do biodegradable stuff. Like, if you're going to write a sigil and put it on a river to fall down, put it on a leaf or something that it'll not do any damage to the river or to the water or to the environment or anything like that. But it is effective, but just be smart and be kind about it. Of course, you have the whole idea of holy water, which you don't need a priest to do. You can make holy water yourself. You decide it's holy, or you take it from a holy place and use that to bless yourself or your office or your house or your instruments or, your paintbrushes or, whatever it is, your dancing shoes. Scrying and divination would come under water for me. That's debatable, and I'm sure I might debate a different element at different times. But this idea of intuition, understanding, revealing, reflection, all of that seems very watery to me. The emotional responses, all of this it seems quite watery. Aqua to me. baths and showers, cleansing baths and showers are, of course, definitely water-based and can be quite effective. And, even if they're not effective, they're quite nice. And, you should be bathing anyway. But, even adding a bit of salt to your bath can be quite refreshing, and, Epsom salts or anything like that. And of course, when all else fails, just like the dancer from the 47s, you too can dance in the rain. And that's kind of pretty good overview of what the water element is for me. It's just like, you mightn't want the realization or the insight. It might not be to your liking. It might not be your preference. But in order to not get stuck in the water element, you have to accept it. Classically, the things associated with it, undines, Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel, cups and chalices from the tarot, of course, west, and this would be sunset or autumn as the season. Just this kind of calming. The height of the summer has come, and now we're into the autumn. So the east and air is where we got the message. The south is where we forged the message and manifested it, and the west is where we understand the message, and that's water. The holy ground. So it's night, and we turn from the sunset and the water to the north. And it's the earth is below us, the rocks, the hardness, the concreteness, the physicalness. It's all very solid and grounded. And so the idea that we've been given has now become embodied in the earth. It's the truth. It is what it is. It's, become solid. It's become concrete. It's solidified. It's become grounded. It has become the thing, I suppose. It's, it's no longer an idea that wants to come in. It's now a thing. It's there. It is. You can point to it, or you can point to its effects. The book is on sale, the music is on Spotify, the dance has been danced, the baby's born, the job is done, the journey is over. In many ways. And so it's become, because the earth, classically, I suppose, I say classically in all of these things, but probably only the last couple of hundred years. Classically would be that, Empedocles actually thinking this was the physical building blocks of how the world works. But it would be seen in many ways that the element of earth is to do with, and of course it's earth in the sense of dirt, not as in the planet Earth. But it's all to do with the material world, the goods, the actual material goods, shelter, your basic needs, food, survival, money, jobs, work, your day-to-day life, the things that, you just have to get on with, the actual thing. It's all well and good being deeply insightful wizard who knows all, and you still have to get up in the morning and put the bins out, and you still have to, wash yourself, you still have to look after the kids, you still have to, do all of these things. It's your actual thing. You have to worry about these things. You have to work on them whenever. So it's like the sense of that the message idea has come into real life. We're into real life. We're into the embodiment of real life. It's the physicality of being alive. It's the eating, drinking, shitting, paying taxes. There's kind of the things you can't escape from in many ways. What I like about the earth element is that in the 40 servants, I have this idea of the mother and father, or in my greater cosmology, the mother and father. Although in the greater cosmology, it's matter and spirit. But in 40 servants, the idea of the mother is, of course, the earth element, this kind of need for shelter and the basic needs and all of that kind of stuff. But the father is also the inevitability of life, the things that you can't get past. It's just the living life, the heartbreak, the work, the, debt and taxes of it all, the betrayals, the sicknesses, the debt, all of these things, and there's like this coming together of the mother and father in a different way than it comes in any of the other kind of elements, or in any other part of the cosmology. But of course, with the whole idea of the earth element, you have your growth and you have roots and grounding and fertility and all of this. But you also have, of course, decay, death, sickness, accidents, famine, floods, pandemics, toxins, diseases. And this kind of notion of, you can tell if your earth is a bit out of balance, I suppose, but a lot of clutter around you, a lot of untidiness, waste, things just everywhere, like pollution, that kind of thing. Everything's untidy or dirty, and the clean your room stuff is, that's what you're starting in. Is a very earth element type of thing. But this whole notion of like looking after yourself, money, responsibility, but very grounded. It's the thing has grounded. It has landed. It's here in the most mundane of mundanes. And of course, the thing has to spin back around, okay? It's not the end. So like that thing that you've landed, that you've grounded, this idea, you've planted back into the earth, right? So it now becomes a seed again. You've understood it. It's become embodied. It's become the thing. And so you plant it again into the ground. So that when you turn once again to the east, there will be a flower there to greet you. That is both now, it's a higher order because it's both having come from the accumulation of all that you've learned. Now it gets re-inspirited so that it's, as if you're constantly going round in, a circle, but an upwards rotating circle that goes up, 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 like this increasing spiral, like spiral staircase of a lighthouse that goes up to the very illumination at the top. And so by embodying it, by solidifying, by grounding it, you're putting it back into the earth in order for the next stage to grow. Earth magic. We know an awful lot about stuff like, we talk a lot in magic circles about like graveyard dirt, which can be used for many, many things. Curses, getting things to, to work in your favour. It's quite a powerful dirt. But I'm kind of thinking about this in another way. Why not other dirts? Like why not hospital dirt for healing? Why not, dirt from a school for learning? Get dirt from a very successful business, or even, like holy dirt was having to bless things, like from somewhere that's a holy place. Keep that with you, or something from your home. It could be a bit like Dracula, where he transported over, soil from Transylvania. So, get a bit more into the dirts. Salt is often used on the altar, to represent earth, whatever. But get your hands dirty, literally. Find different, the soil from different places and work with it that way as an embodiment of these places, as if it's been infused with the energies of the place. You can, of course, also, things like if you want to do money magic, because, this is the realm of money in many ways, bury coins or bury offerings or put stuff into the ground and that kind of way. Again, what I said about the water or whatever, not to have, don't be essentially littering. Don't be doing things that's, ecologically bad. Don't pollute things, but like if you're going to bury sigils or you're going to bury something, have it be, and you want it to be anyway, but you want it to disappear into the earth. Have it biodegradable. Write your sigil on a leaf and bury it so that it disappears into the earth. Don't put it on something that you want to be there forever, else you're not really activating it. You're just burying it, to hide it. Of course, you can do all the offerings you want as well, like the earth-based offerings, or tend to the garden. Do as much of your own kind of planting and farming and grow vegetables. And if you go to a forest, pick up the rubbish. Bring a bag with you to pick up any litter that's there, or don't walk past any litter anywhere. Do stuff just to help the environment or to help the earth or whatever. Gnomes are the creature, the elemental creature. Uriel. Uriel, I have a hard time with as the angel evolved him, because it means Uriel translates as the fire of God, which you would assume then would be more suited to the element of fire. And I couldn't really find out, why. So I put it into ChatGTP, and it was saying I understand why you're saying fire is the name is an issue, but if you think of it as that it's about balancing and grounding and stuff like that. Well, it makes a decent argument, I suppose, but it's like, again, I never really fully gravitated towards angels because of this, because I don't really understand that. I mean, I would say if an angel is called the fire of God, that he should be related to the fire element, right? That's my lack of understanding of it and the nuance that it's involved in that. But if someone can explain it better to me, then I'm fully willing to accept it. Pentacles or coins in tarot cards. We're in the north, and it's winter. That's kind of the whole circle then, and then it repeats either from a fresh new flower or from a higher order version of the same flower on an upward spinning spiral. And I really like this kind of idea of the elements, because there's something very practical about it for me, in that so you can situate, and of course I know it's a paradigm, I know it's not an actual explanation or scientific rational explanation of how the universe works or how my life is, but it's a really good metaphor, a really good paradigm to work through, and it makes sense. The kind of insights that I've got from it, from having looked at it, and like even down to that thing of knowing when to go with the flow, it's not during air, it's not during fire, and it's not during air. Just going with the flow is in the water period of the situation. And so if you are in a situation, you can sit yourself, well, where am I predominantly situated? What am I looking at? And it's earth. Well, just get on with it. Just do it. Do the thing. Do the next task ahead of you. But make sure to plant to plant your knowing into, to embody your truth. What have you learned? Now actually go out into the world knowing that. You know, if you're in the kind of an air situation, to be open, to be receptive to the voice of God, to the voice, the still small quiet voice within. You know, Odin is by all accounts the guy who talks you through the wind, you know, and just be open to that, and to be open for inspiration, to be inspired, to open to see that small blossoming flower that you know wants to manifest in the world, that wants to become something else. And can you help it? It's that idea for a song, that idea for a book, that idea for whatever it is, for a work-based project. And if you're in the fire, if you're in the crucible, then do it, you know, but let it be. The thing that I find that once I realised it, made things an awful lot better for me, was that let the idea be whatever it is, rather than you trying to imprint who you are upon the idea. Because what ends up is that you have you end up with a terrible version of the idea that, you know, doesn't reach its potential. It's made in the image and likeness of you. But if you can just see yourself as a midwife in many ways, that I am here to allow this idea, this creativity, this whatever, this insight to manifest in whatever way it wants to be, whether I agree with it or not, whether it's my preference or not, whether it's something that, you know, ultimately even I would use at this point in my life. It's just to let it be whatever it is, because all of these things will transform us. And if you're just in the process of only allowing the ideas, insights, creativity, inspirations to be something that you would agree with, how can it be transformative? You can't transform by being told what you already think, or you can't transform in any way by knowing the things you already know. So if an idea or an insight is coming, just allow it to be, and you'll know it's probably a good one, because you won't agree with it, because you won't like it, or that it just, I'm not sure about this. This is not the way I usually look at it. This is not the way I usually want things to be. You know, this upsets me in some way. And you go, right, this is probably a good one, if I can allow it to be. And when once it's forged, you know, you sit there with it by the river, fishing, with your can of beer, and you allow it to be whatever it is. And then, you know, you come back into the world as the person who embodies this kind of insight, this knowledge. So having suitably repeated myself, we will leave the elements there. While saying also, of course, the spirit, as I said, is the fifth element, but it's the one above it all. This is its journey through the other elements, how it interacts with them. So it's encompassing, it's the four elements of earth, air, fire and water in the greater cosmology would be the mother, and the spirit would be the father. And we are working within the elements as the child. So, yeah. So that's it. That is the highly anticipated. By highly anticipated, I mean, in my brain, look at the elements. I really enjoyed this one. I avoided it for so long because I felt I had nothing I didn't think I had a whole... Let me start again. I knew for some reason, being the thing that I've talked about, that I had to allow the idea to be what the idea was. And this was like, oh, you're doing something on the elements. Because it's something I've talked about before. We did it in Tasta. I've mentioned different places. I do really like it. I don't think there's an awful lot of great information about it out there on it. And then when I said, because I usually don't say what I'm going to do, because of the fairy things of saying things out loud that I talked about as well in air, that it kind of dissipates the energy, which it did in many ways to this, but it also locked me into it because I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't say, maybe I'll do whatever I'm into this week instead. So it forced me to look at the elements, and I really found that really helpful, because there was an awful lot of, while orientating myself in it and having to do that thing of where you have to try and explain all of this stuff to someone else rather than just having it rummaging around in your own head, a lot of clarity and a lot of things come out of that, and I find it a really workable, likeable, more complete system than I had before, and I'm very grateful for that. So, and like what I said though in the intermission episode in the last time, all of these kind of things all of these episodes will be building up and rewritten, of course. These are like kind of the first notes, or the first draft, if you want, of what will eventually become a book about my entire cosmology, which again, I'm doing for selfish reasons rather than for the good of all mankind, or for money or fame or success, whatever, because it allows me to understand what are these kind of intuitions or these kind of things that I've been piecing together, and by looking into them and trying to see them from an outsider's point of view, how would this half-baked idea actually translate? It's immensely helpful for me, and hopefully helpful in some way, or at least not boring to the people listening. But I assume if you got this far, then you didn't find it that tremendously boring. The elements are often overlooked, and I think it's because, particularly in chaos magic circles, it's kind of looked down on because it's that kind of Wiccan thing, you know, those lesser people, the Wiccans, the witches, those, you know, things that kind of chaos magic ego thing that they have. that we have. I suppose I'm part of the scene. I don't really have that about witchcraft or Wiccans. I really, really like their involvement with earth and seasons and cycles and that whole thing of actually being present on the planet, rather than an awful lot of spirituality is trying to get away from it or see it as a lesser or as a something wrong, something at fault, something to get away from. So I have a lot of respect for all of that. And to, depending on the day, would call myself a witch, chaos witch. Not always, depends on the day. And I think, it's also kind of overlooked because people go straight to the planetary powers, Why would I mess around with the earth element when I can go to Jupiter and he can give me everything? Why would I mess around with fire when I can go to Mars? Or why, would I mess around with air when I can go to Mercury? Who am I missing now? Earth is earth, I assume. And I think because it's like, these are the things, the elements are the things that, they're part of you, they're intrinsic into you, they're not a part of your life, they're there before you. It's this whole thing of tend to the part of the garden that you can reach. And you can reach all of these elements much quicker than you can reach Saturn. It's like going to some company, whatever, and wanting to talk to one of the high up ranking people who work there, rather than, you can go to your local community centre that's there for you, and that kind of thing. And I suppose the elements are there, they're part of you, they're part of the world you already interact with. And if you can just have a better appreciation of how it plays out in your life, I think it can only be beneficial. It can only be something that can grow on, and it's something you can become more in tandem with or in step with. And you can see where you're out of balance. You can see where you're not putting enough effort in. You can see where you're getting stuck. You can see what parts that you tend to give up on, or the things that, where you're acting in the wrong way. I like to think that, come back to that, going with the flow in the wrong place, or putting action and ego and passion, in the earth sphere where that's not really about it. It's about embodiment, getting on with it. It's not really about bringing you to it, or whatever, these type of things. And I'll be interested if you do get any way inspired by any of it and have a fresh look on the elements, or if you have some sort of insight that you would like to share with me about it all. Of course, the directions and the correspondence and all that they differ so much and in many different places, and people have many different ideas about it. And just, I also like the idea of the ice being in the north. I think that kind of makes sense because, north to me is ice, being in Ireland, sun to the south, all that kind of things. But if you're in Australia, ice would be to the south of you, right? And then the sun would be to the north. So, it all depends on where your situation is, or where you lie, where you live. But you have to find something that resonates with you. But again, don't get stuck in preferences, don't get just go, oh, I like this, so I'm doing it. Have a good reason for it, rather than just it being just a preference. That's one of the things that I think we get wrong with chaos magic, is that we think our preferences are the best barometer of truth or success, and it may not always be. You decide that you have to make a good case for your preferences, or else you don't get to use them. So, good people of the internet, I shall not bore you any longer. I will leave you with all that, and the next episode, just so I dissipate the energy on it, but I've already said it, will be on the chakras. And after that, I do not know. I am sure I will be inspired. I'm sure the wind will tell me what it is that the next episode will be, or what is next to happen. So, good people of the internet, may you find that the wind tells you nice things, that the fire allows you to forge weapons that are in your favour, that these weapons are to your understanding and your insight and your acceptance, and add to your adaptability and to your flow, so that you can embody them and enjoy and survive and move around the earth in a more proficient, happy, loving and sheltered and mothered way, while also having the ability to farm and plant for the next time. Good people of the internet, may your best days be ahead, and be well.